Mr. Dyer, you have 2 minutes.
The children exclaimed, "What about love?" I'm saying, what about equity? If you allow Thomasville to close, throw your strategic, facilities plan in the garbage. Because this precedent that you're setting with Thomasville, when you allow a purpose-built or contractor to make a decision on a tax-paid building, then you have no credibility. That is the greatest inequity of all, and you're supposed to have a department that's supposed to look at that. You know, there's stability. Stability for children is very important. If a child leaves an elementary school and go to middle school, they feel some kind of way about the old school. So imagine children who are attending a school and they haven't completed their cycle, and now you're shutting the door on them, especially after their building has been condemned. And the children have been living those conditions for a long period of time. So if you have any type of heart, you give those children some time to heal. And what about the solution of working with that low student teacher population? If Purpose Built is the group that's supposed to run it, why are they throwing in the towel if they have an effective system to bring those young people up to par? But I guess they don't. You work with the low student teacher ratio, then that's a recruitment tool when they plan to rebuild a place where you get more students to come in. That impacts Carver, that impacts Slater, that impacts all those schools. But you see, development is the name of the game. They use black boys and girls as scapegoats for failure to usher in development. Time and time again. Now, I know you're new here, but it's amazing how they bring superintendents here to ruin their careers. I'm against any type of school closure, especially coming out of a pandemic. The numbers that your group, that Sizemore group brought in here, totally inaccurate. All of the white schools are full capacity. All of the black schools, low capacity. But yet, that's where the development is happening. If you're looking at statistics and ARC, they're talking about growth. So I would say reevaluate, get involved, because your blood is on your hands if Thomasville closed, and you're going to hear from the community. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this concludes public comment.
Welcome once again to Exposed, where we dive deep and get to the heart of the matter. I'm your host, Nathaniel Dyer, and it's a pleasure to be in your home once again. Today, we're going to be hitting on, some really, things that we need to discuss in today's times. We are under attack. Yeah, you heard it from me. Yeah, under attack. And guess what? Nobody's coming to save us. Nobody is coming to save us. And if they were coming to save us, we know what that looks like. It's not going to be the type of deal that we bargain for or, would dream of having. History really shows us what this country as how it feels about us financially, education-wise, and just basic freedoms. Driving down the road, going to get some Skittles, playing with a little BB gun, or, just the basic element of breathing. So codes have been placed on us, but we have to understand why us? Why do we have to continue to face these atrocities that are constantly committed against us? There are laws that are supposed to protect us, right? But you fail to understand the element of your power, of your mere existence, and how that is a threat to this society. I want to share with you today a little bit of history as to how we as a people were enslaved in this country. But when the war was over, guess what? We were afforded land, yes, 40 acres and a mule. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But you need to understand, not only were we afforded land, but we also had, we have my guest, Mr. Bernard on once again. How you doing, Bernard? Okay, you may be muted.
Hey, how everybody doing today? I'm glad to see you.
Hey, doing great. Yes, Greg, glad to have you on once again. And of course, we're diving into this national crisis that seems like we're ignoring. You know,
Right.
anytime our children aren't doing well, and that's Black boys and girls, we should all be sick as a country, but especially Black people.
True.
Bernard about to take us on what can I say, put us in a time capsule and go back a little bit where we look at history and how it played out on us after slavery. Okay, so there's this video that I want to play, which is called, it's about Reconstruction. Okay, 5 questions basically. So it can be kind of skewed. So, but we're going to pull from it and give our commentary on it. Okay, and what I mean by skewed, it doesn't really give the real breadth of what happened to us as Black people. It kind of skims things over, just like this modern day history. Okay, so without further ado, as Ms. Adrian plays the video.
The period after the American Civil War is known as the Reconstruction Era, when the United States grappled with reintegrating seceded states into the Union and determining the legal status of formerly enslaved Black Americans. It's also a time rife with historical misconceptions, and without looking close, it may be hard to determine what really happened. When was the Reconstruction Era? Reconstruction lasted from 1865 to 1877. It began after the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. His successor, Andrew Johnson, initiated what was called Presidential Reconstruction, the steps taken by the federal government from 1865 to 1867 to ensure that the nation would come back together. The second phase, known as Radical Reconstruction, was led by Congress and sought to secure the political and civil rights of formerly enslaved people. It lasted from 1867 to 1877. What did presidential Reconstruction look like? Led by Johnson, presidential Reconstruction was extremely lenient to the reintegrated South. All Southern whites, except wealthy landowners and Confederate leaders, received a blanket pardon for secession. Most of those who didn't would later receive individual pardons. As long as they agreed to abolish slavery and pay Confederate debts, Southern governments were allowed to manage their affairs as they pleased, including passing laws that limited the legal rights of Black Americans. How was Reconstruction received by the American people? Presidential Reconstruction frustrated many people. White Northern voters in the autumn 1866 congressional elections pressured lawmakers to begin anew, and the period of radical Reconstruction followed as the new Congress outlined new rules for how Southern states could manage their governments. With voting rights now enforced nationwide for all men regardless of race, Black Southerners and anti-slavery white Southern allies precipitated the rise of the Republican Party in the former Confederate states. African Americans were elected to public office throughout the South, some of them winning seats in Congress. Who opposed radical Reconstruction? Many white Southerners, especially those who had been pro-slavery, were resentful of governments populated by Black Americans. As multiracial governments passed laws against racial discrimination and segregation, bitter white Southerners spread the myth that Reconstruction was secretly establishing Black supremacy over whites. How did Reconstruction end? As anti-Reconstruction whites blamed Southern governmental corruption on the exclusion of wealthy white landowners, white Northern Republicans began getting more conservative. Slowly, Republicans and thus Black American voters began losing power in the South. When Rutherford B. Hayes was elected president in 1876, he acknowledged and accepted Democratic control over the South. By the turn of the century, white Americans once again had almost full control. Racial segregation and the disenfranchisement of Black voters were enforced, with no government censure in sight.
History is such a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing. You have any comments about that clip?
they still doing it every day. I mean, we still living it. Our past is just as prevalent as what we are going through today with the powers that be. People go around and they say all the time that Atlanta is a city run by Black people. Let's be realistic. Nothing in this whole country is run by Black people. The powers that be are the ones with the money in the background. Even you saw that with President Obama. You had President Obama up there as a puppet and being controlled by people over his head. It was things that he wouldn't even touch for his own people. So, I mean, we still living it, Nate.
Well, people make the argument for Obama time and time again. Well, he couldn't do anything. He was, don't run for nothing. If you can't do anything, don't run for nothing. Okay, just don't run for anything. Don't be no first Black or whatever. If you can't, carry the weight of being that person, don't run. Please do not run. We'll be better off with the what history tells us what we get anyway.
Right.
Some of the notes that I made out of it is basically the Civil War was fought for nothing. You had 600,000, and I say mainly white men dying in the cause. Of course, we had our share of casualties as well, but they definitely paid the price. But basically, it was fought for nothing because the soldiers were pardoned. They claimed that the poor whites were given blanket pardons, but the wealthy whites and the generals, the officers in the Confederate Army had to go beg for a pardon. And that wasn't difficult. That was just a ride to the White House. Now,
Right.
mind you, these guys were in fear of being hung for treason as they went up there. But the part that wasn't mentioned in that clip is that Johnson, history says that Johnson empathized with the poor whites. And I guess that's where you get the blanket pardons from. But he despised the wealthy, the planters, and the generals, the commanders of the army. But he knew that basically the whites, they could not compete with the Blacks because we did all the work. We did all of the labor. So we're going to go to this. And Adrian, if you have this clip of the 40 acres field order number 15, I want to point that out to you as well, Bernard. Special field order number 15 on January 16, 1865, that was during this period of Reconstruction, Union General William T. Sherman issued special field order number 15, which confiscated as federal property a strip of coastal land extending about 30 miles inland from the Atlantic and stretching from Charleston, South Carolina, 245 miles south to Jacksonville, Florida. The order gave most of the roughly 400,000 acres to newly emancipated slaves in 40-acre sections. We had the 40 acres and a mule. And all we asked was to be left alone so we can enjoy our freedom. Thank you, Adrian, for that. Thank you. And to the viewing audience, please do your research. Understand we didn't beg for anything. So, it seems like a lot of times we get into this mode in modern times, Bernard, where we're ashamed to say, be proud of who we are, beyond this propaganda that they put on us that we want welfare, we never want none of that. Hell, our history shows we had to work for every damn thing and then they get paid what we deserved.
And the only time they called us lazy was when we stopped working for them for free.
Precisely. But they were sitting on their asses.
Right.
So, again, even during that time, nobody was coming for us. They want to make the war appear to be about the emancipation of Black people, but it was about cotton and the South being the seventh richest aristocracy in the world We're just
Right.
a byproduct to make it a moral war. Again,
Right.
being used again.
Right. Because
So
that war was basically about the South becoming financially too wealthy for the North. They was surpassing them, and they didn't like it. That's all it was. It was all about money.
yeah,
All about money. Once again.
yeah, money and class, because the Northerners were supposed to be the higher class, because
Right.
they were supposed to be the stepchildren of Britain, England, you know,
Right.
the Queen's children. But then you have this offspring, this backwoods, as I say, the broken language of the Queen's English or King's English of the Southerners outdoing the Northerners. So Big Brother North can't let Little Brother South outdo them, and that's what was happening. So you look at the end result at the end of the war, they were pardoned. And then they wanted to say that it took what, 1865 to 1867 to 1877 to look out for the rights of blacks. Please give me a damn break. You know, if anything, to put us in more of a structured system, which kept us from our rights. And that's evident by the black codes, because when they were lenient on allowing the South to do whatever they wanted to do, and let's just say this whole country, they want to put everything on the South, but the North did it as well. Which,
Right.
you know, by the end of the video, it says that everything went back to predominantly being white. We get the black codes, we get Jim Crow, we get all of these types of things. So as we come up today to today's times, there's another article that came out today, Bernard. Adrian, if you can pull some of those points up, it pretty much hits on history. No systemic racism. No systemic racism. Look at the student achievement gaps in reading. Now, one thing that we should note, Bernard, I'm sure you keenly aware, when the Freedmen's Bureau was formed, the first thing they brought to us, one of the first things was schools, right?
Right.
But they know that we had to learn how to read, and reading was very critical. Now, during slavery, if you were standing by a letter in the sand, you could have gotten your foot cut off, hand cut off, or worse yet, killed.
That's right.
Yeah, because a letter was drawn in the dirt, or it looked like a C or a letter. You know,
Right.
that's just the buffoonery that existed with these, crazy ass people. So, this is coming from the Washington Post, Valerie Strauss, June 19, 2021, last year. In 2019, as is routinely done in alternate years, a representative sample of students in 8th grade were tested by the Education Department's National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's the NAEP, in reading and a number of other subjects. The NAEP is known as the nation's report card, the largest nationally representative and continuing assessment of U.S. students in various subjects. Okay, so that's the history of them. The percentage of each group's achievement level was reported as advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic, or very good, good, good enough, and worrying. The national results in 8th grade reading were 4% at advanced, 29% at proficient, 39% at basic, and 28% at below basic. So
That's a failing grade, right?
that, you know, it kind of reminds me of what I heard. Well, we'll get back to we'll get on the education in the clusters a little bit. Achievement outcomes for white non-Hispanic students, whom NAEP calls white, were something like a bell curve skewed to the left. 5% at advanced, 36% at proficient, 39% at basic, and 19% below basic. Now that's in red for a reason, 19% below basic, but we have 5% at advanced, 36% at proficient, 39% at basic, and 19% below basic. Okay. Now, those kind of seem like they could be, it's not good enough, but okay, well, compared to us, let's see what it says. Outcomes for Black students were even more heavily skewed to the left. 1% at advanced, 14% at proficient, 39% at basic, 47%, nearly half at below basic. So, Adrian, can we go back to that last slide? Okay. Let's compare this now. 5% at advanced. I believe we were at 1%.
Right.
36% at proficient, 39% at basic, and 19% below basic. Okay, now hold that slide for a second, Adrian. Before Reconstruction, Bernard, during slavery, we were not being educated. Okay.
No.
We were not allowed to learn whatsoever, count anything. But white students were.
Right.
Okay. So if you look at this really doesn't bode well for the white students.
No.
Yeah, because they were given a head start. What about a couple of 100 years? 200, 300, 400?
Let's see, it was 400 years of slavery, and then after slavery, they still had probably another 150 years where we were still behind. So you're talking about almost 500 years, 550 years.
Okay, all right. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so we were behind. Okay, now we were behind about 400 years, but we're 1% at advanced, 14% at proficient, 39% at basic, and nearly half at below basic. Okay, now I want to frame this in a sense, Bernard, that to say that's the threat. It's not good by no means. It's not good by no means. But considering the fact of 400, just say 500 years of not being educated in this country, but yet here are the numbers compared to 500 being ahead of the curve. Okay.
Right.
So that's the threat and why we're not getting the proper resources. Our children aren't being properly prepared in the system because of the threat. Because if everything was level, these numbers would blow their numbers out of the water.
Well, we'll surpass them. I mean, our kids are real great at learning, and we also have to look at too the tests that they give our children. I read some of the questions on the milestone test that they fixing to take for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I couldn't even answer, out of 5 questions, I couldn't answer but one of them right. And my principal couldn't answer but one of them right.
Right.
A lady with a doctorate degree, come on now. So it was the way that the question was set up. It was set up for our kids to not be able to understand it. It was like asking a question backwards to us. But it made sense. It makes sense to white people. So it was set up for them to succeed at and for us to fail at. So we also got to look at that also.
Yeah. So, and these numbers are set up to embarrass us, to make us feel like we're incompetent, when really it proves the opposite. There's a comment, you can make TV. This is an indictment on U.S. public education. Not only education, but the whole structure. The judicial, everything is geared towards trying to impact our quality of life by putting us in some type of psychological deficit. We can't learn, we can't follow rules, we can't do all these type of things, but yet the system is totally skewed against us. Okay, here's some more. In 2019, our public schools taught 80% of non-white non-Hispanic students to read, at least at the level expected for those middle school students. But they failed to teach nearly half of their Black students to read, as well as 8th graders might be expected to read. Once again, isn't this history rearing its ugly head?
Mm-hmm.
The chances of a Black male student being taught to read well is close to 1/5 that of a white female student and 1/3 of a white male student. The implications of this for the nation's future are extremely troubling. If half of the country's Black males are so inadequately educated that their reading ability is in doubt, so are their futures and those of their families and that of the nation as a whole. Okay. So again, that's what we are. I'll throw out one interesting issue that has happened recently, Bernard. You heard about Michelle Obama's brother and his wife, their child being expelled from this school.
Right, I heard.
Based on race. Yeah, that they had the kids. Some of the details were they would have the kids reenact slavery, and there were slave catchers and all this and all, that kind of stuff. So to the people in the viewing audience who believe that we should go beyond race conversations and the issues of the past and these things, you go live in that little egg bowl or that little fish bowl and make yourself real comfortable, okay? Because when that fish bowl breaks and you wake up into reality, you're gonna find that you back in the same place you were. Again, nobody's coming to save us. Bernard, it amazes me how people think that if you don't talk about racism or bring it up, it's gonna disappear.
No, that ain't the way it works. I mean, we gotta stand up against it, and we have to fight. When I say fight, I don't mean let's go pick up our guns. I mean, your words are like a mighty sword. We can wipe these people down. We can show them that we intelligent. We can show them all of this, but it don't mean nothing to them because they know who we are. That's why they chose to bring us to this country, to build this country. And the truth of the fact is, most of the people that's here didn't come from Africa. Most of them was already here, and they was enslaved. So, but just past that, like my daddy always said when I asked him about slavery, I was like, why would they bring these savage people from a jungle to build a nation? And my daddy was like, they didn't bring savages from a jungle. They brought people that was educated. People didn't know it. Like black people, when they fled from Israel, they was the original Jews.
Yeah.
They fled from Israel into North Africa and West Africa, and they settled there. And they had communities of lawyers and doctors and councils and everything. They had an organized set of rules and laws and all this stuff, and Europeans were still shitting in the pot, and we had running plumbing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, we had 25 dynasties
Right.
before them, but you don't hear that in school. They want to relegate us to this. I'm just gonna say, it's ignorant.
Well, we began in slavery to them.
Yeah, we began, and that's what they want us to end. But again, we look at the statistics, and again, the threat of them being, you look at these basketball games, right? And these same people that hate the guts of anything black, rooting and cheering.
They cheering them on.
Yeah, rooting and cheering. But as soon as one of those athletes stands up and say, "Hey, I'm a man. I'm proud to be black, and this is what," but all of a sudden they're the scourge of the earth. They're
take a knee. Take a knee.
Yeah, take a knee. Yeah, take a knee. Yeah, but the thing is, they try to, and it's got to be psychological hell for them, to root for a person of color, but knowing that you have no love for them, their people, you want to stereotype and stick with that. And when they have an opportunity to truly help a black person in the community, they turn their backs and say, "Oh, they deserve it. They're just a bunch of savages." So it goes to the question of where are we today? We laid out our history, the great, even with the slavery. I would say that doesn't put a mark on us as a people because we endured the harshest treatment, having no rights, no power. But look how we came out of it. If you leave it just as slavery, no one can say, well, how can you be proud? But you look at how we overcame and where we are today. and
That's
we're
right.
not even touching the tip of the of where we should be.
No.
But you
And,
know,
and
that
and was given nothing.
was given. Hey, they
Nothing.
gave the 40 acres and a mule, and they took that back.
Right.
Even though we had
And I talked to the guy who owned the black bank over here in the West End, and he is the whole theory of him starting that bank was the reason they say that they wouldn't give us the 40 acres and a mule in a monetary value is because we don't have our own banks. So that was his reason for starting the bank, and getting other black people to start banks so that when they give us reparations, we have banks to put our money in.
okay, that to
It's
me,
crap. That's
yeah,
crap. That'll never happen.
foolish,
It'll
because
never happen.
we had banks in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We
Right.
had banks in cities that they burned down
And bombed.
and bombed. So, and the question would be, now where did that money go once they bombed those cities? You look at those corporations that we have today, the General Electrics, the Fords, and wonder, did they benefit off of the money coming from the banks, our black banks?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, somebody, of course, the land, we had the land. Thomas Campbell is a prime example on the Sepulveda Islands, St. Catherine's Island, where they had a successful experiment of what could be done with the 40 acres on that island. No white man could set foot on that island. They had they had schools, they had a senate, they had a justice system, and he was smart enough to have a militia. You can't expect to have all the things we desire and not have a faction of protection.
Right. You got to have a physical. You have to have an army. You have to have an army.
Yeah,
and that goes across everything, because when you have something that you believe in against what they believe in, that's a war. That's a war. That's a war to them. So we can't sit up here and just be waving hands and smiling and being all nice. You got to call in your soldiers to protect you and your people.
Well, speaking of soldiers, I guess that's us on the front lines. There's a question. What do you hear from your parents? Okay, I know you are going through this change, and really, viewing audience, just wanted to set the backdrop of the history and why this fight with Thomasville, Atlanta Public Schools, what's happening to Slater is so important. And you have to understand, we understand that nobody's coming to save us or rescue us. If anything, we can gain some support. You can do what you can do, and we have some information in the future how you can participate. But we're at war,
right?
And so I think there was an incident that happened at your school yesterday, right? If you want to talk about it, if you feel okay.
Yeah, we can totally talk about it. I had one of the parents pull out into the road, and another parent hit him. And the guy who got hit, he asked the other guy to move, and he wouldn't, and they got into an argument. So one of the parents pulled out a gun and shot out one of his windows in the car and left. He thought it was all over. He went home like a dum-dum. And when he came back in the afternoon to pick up his child, the police was parked behind the school just waiting on him to get there to pick up his child. And they came and they locked him up. I mean, but this wasn't happening when my principal was in the seat. Okay, now we have people from purpose-built schools, like the higher up, the corporate people are in our building now because our third graders, fourth graders, and fifth graders upstairs been fighting every day because the school is in chaos right now. So my parents, they want to see this stuff come to a halt and stop. We really want to get purpose-built out of the school cluster, out of the school business. They don't need to be they don't need to be over anybody's child. Believe me. We got the guy who runs Purpose Built, Greg Gianelli. He said personally, and I heard it from some other reliable resources, that our kids don't want to go to college no way. So why even put money over there in Carver, in the Carver STEAM? Our kids don't want to go to college anyway. So he already is failing our children. He's saying that they don't want to go to college, so he's not going to put the right resources in place to encourage them to even think that they have a chance to get into college. So I'm asking everybody who's watching the show, reach out to some people. We having that board meeting next month on the 9th at APS. Let's fill that sucker up. Everybody come and show up and show out.
Yeah, and this guy Greg Gianelli is the CEO, I believe, of Purpose Built Schools, which is affiliated with Purpose Built Communities. So that basically means that they go into communities and flip them. And all of this is under the umbrella of Cousins Properties. So go to Cousins Properties website and check out which companies they're courting to come to your city. In this city, there are 4 big ones: Microsoft, Google, Airbnb, and Visa. Okay. And thank you if you've been on the show, heard the show before. I'll just repeat it one more time. Hey, the big deal is to, if you're dealing with a company like Cousins Properties, well, they can afford you the commercial district. You know, you've been a prime location, but it's the residential component that makes them so a force to be reckoned with in the industry. Most companies can only provide their commercial space. But you see, Cousins Properties became a little bit more savvy and say, hey, look, we're going to have your people set up to live in their own communities. They're going to have the best of the best schools. They don't have to tell them where they're going to put those schools. That's going to be in our neighborhoods. Okay. Mm-hmm. Our neighborhoods at the expense of Black boys and girls. You saw the statistics early. Black boys and girls are brilliant learners. Here's a question. Does Purpose Built have a contract with APS? How can they still have a contract with that attitude towards children? You want to tap in on that one? And
yeah, I mean, the campaign for the APS board members, they own 5 of the board members. I mean, that's true. They the max contributors to their campaign. So it's only 9 people sitting on the board. If you got 5, you're in control of the APS board. Yeah, that's how they still holding their contract. And everybody act like they're so clueless. And when we talk to APS, they act like, why do everybody have this problem with Purpose Built? We keep telling them over and over and over again, because they paid. So they're going to tell us whatever they want to tell us, and they really not in a position to do anything about it because they on the payroll.
Not only are they on the payroll, Bernard, and you cover that well, yes, they are bought and paid for. The superintendent has a close connection with Purpose Built as well. Superintendent Heron, she comes from Birmingham, Alabama. She was superintendent there. Purpose Built schools or Purpose Built communities existed in that area. Maybe 2 years before she arrived on the scene. There's a school, Woodlawn High School. Google Woodlawn High School and Google Carver High School in Atlanta, and place those pictures side by side, and you'll see the connection. So for her to come here, and in the midst of, here's one more connection. Okay. So you see, she's from Birmingham, Alabama. She's tied in with Purpose Built Communities. Let's throw in the reason they want to close Thomasville, because of Forest Cove. That's an apartment complex that is disrepair. Millennial Properties owns that property. Okay, recent purchase. Millennial Properties just purchased some units in Birmingham, Alabama, in the West End, which is not too far from Woodlawn High School, the very district that Superintendent Herron worked in or officiated, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so one has to ask, if you choose to, why did they bring her here, with no agenda, and she's under the plan that the former superintendent left, which really is trash. Okay, Purpose-Built has a 15-year contract with Atlanta Public Schools with little to no oversight. So when they pose these questions, why is Purpose-Built so bad? What? Because they have no backbone to hold them accountable. So we as a community have to have the backbone to get them the hell out of those seats.
That's right.
Get them the hell out of those seats. Hey, bombard them. Hey, they so weak and fragile. Bombard them with calls, send letters, emails, Twitter, whatever. And if need be, shame them the hell out. Because it is truly unfortunate and cruel what they're doing to Black boys and girls in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And, Bernard, your testimony of how the culture was before they made these changes. I remember
it was a beautiful place to be in.
Yeah. And that's very rare in a school within Atlanta Public Schools, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was rare to me. I've been around the block. So
everybody called our school the jewel of the cluster because we like to talk about culture.
Yeah.
We had the greatest culture out of all the schools around, like, period. Nobody could touch it. Like, when you walk through the front door, it was, hey, how you doing, Miss Thomas or Mr. John or this and that. Everybody knew everybody's name. You felt like family, and our principal was welcoming parents in the community into the building.
Yeah. So viewing audience, not only did they remove the principal, but then they fired a large portion of the staff with replacements from the principal school that's coming in. So I'm not going to make any excuses for teachers who may allow their classes to slide a little bit, but when human nature takes a toll, and you got maybe a month left in the school year.
Yeah, I think you got what is it? It's about 20 days. We got about 3 more weeks.
Okay, 20 days, but your future is uncertain. You're an educator. You have to find the next steps, but you are supposed to teach at the highest level. So one thing I know about being in the environment of education or working with young people, the children feel it. They may not have the experience that we have, but children can feel when something's not right with adults or in certain environment, and it causes them to react. So this guy, Greg Gianelli, is the worst thing to happen to any child, but I'm gonna be more specific in saying Black boys and girls, because in many ways he's on record as not being in their best interest. Well, regardless of hearsay or not, look at the actions that he's taken: removing the principal, destroying the culture,
and wouldn't let me host a town hall meeting. It told me I did not have access to our school, to our building.
One of the only functioning PTAs within Atlanta Public Schools, which Mr. Arnold is the president of, was not allowed to do what he's charged to do. So purpose-built schools, we need to have them destroyed on paper. Just get them out of any environment where children are, especially Black boys and girls. They're proven that they're not in the best interest, and plus they come into communities to rob them of their environment. That's their whole goal. Their goal is to go in, pillage and infiltrate and pillage and come away with the land by removing their parents. East Lake Meadows is a prime example. What's going on? What's going to happen to teachers at Thomasville? Are they employed by APS or purpose built? Will they be transferred to another school if Thomasville closes? Great question.
Yeah, well, what's happened was their teachers are coming to Slater Elementary, and some did lose their job. I think they lost maybe 30 teachers or something like that. But we lost 50 teachers, and we lost our whole admin, principal, vice principal, our counselors, everything. We lost everything. The people who had relationships with our children, they're not going to be in our building next year. So yeah, I understand everybody's still concerned about Thomasville, and we are. Just like me and Nate, we don't want to see Thomasville close, and that's why we need everybody to show up and support the movement. Thomasville needs to stay open.
And I'll add on to that, Bernard. The reason we see Thomasville being remaining open is for positives. Thomasville has had a failing record over the years, according to the state. Okay, APS wants to dress it up as something differently, but now by all accounts, by state records, it has been failing. Now that the school has a low population, that leads to better results as relates to a low student-teacher ratio.
Mm-hmm.
That school can be an example of what can be done, and the amount of attention given to those young boys and girls over there would just be huge. But you see, they don't want to do that. Again, you saw the numbers before and how they want to educate Black boys and girls. So this is not just me saying something just because I love Black boys and girls. History shows what they're trying to do to destroy these young children. Okay,
Right.
These children are facing eviction. They're facing displacement. They're facing a school being closed. They're facing being bused across town to maybe a hostile environment that may not be accepting to them. I mean, Bernard mentioned earlier how there's gunplay with just the culture within the school. So imagine when they combine another culture in there. I know people say, well, there's black and black. Now, come on now, let's be real. You just weren't born yesterday.
Yeah, and you know how it is if you stayed on the west side and somebody else from Decatur, y'all it's two different cultures, and they gonna clash. They gonna clash. The south side against the west side, and that's just what it is. I mean, we got to be real about it.
Let's be real about it and understand that was indoctrinated in us during slavery.
Yeah.
All this separation and stuff, the light skin, the dark skin, the field nigga, the house nigga, all these. So let's not, play games like we don't understand.
Willie Lynch stuff is still, it's so deep inside of us. It's in our DNA. It's been taught to us for so many hundreds of years that we born knowing something different between this dude and that dude, and I don't like this dark-skinned person. I don't like that light-skinned person. And I hear people say it all the time. It's sick. They came up with a plot and it worked.
Yeah, it works, and they still allow it to play out today. A prime example is this mayor. He comes in claiming to want to do. Okay, let's use this Forest Code example. Now, viewing audience, if you're not aware, there was a huge land deal with the old Chattahoochee. Let me make sure I have this right.
The brick company.
Chattahoochee Brick Company, okay, which they say Dickens, who is the mayor now, celebrates this. $27 million for dirt. All right. Hold that. Take a snapshot. $27 million for dirt. That was as recent as this week. But since February, the people in Thomasville have been promised to be relocated. Okay, relocated. Now, I think, Bernard, you have some information on what the cost that it would take to fix that.
Oh, yeah. To fix Forest Cove completely, the whole is 500 units.
Okay.
To fix the complete whole apartment complex would be $56 million. But this mayor just threw how 20 what?
27 million.
27 million that dirt. And we got people that's living in apartments. I'm talking about they got holes in the wall. You can see in them folks' apartment. Some of them, instead of having windows where their windows got busted, they got wood over the windows. What kind of environment you think that is for a child? Psychologically, them people living in a war zone. I have never seen nothing like that. You wouldn't want your dog to live in Forest Cove. So why would they? That just show you where they value our lives and our children. They don't care about us. And we got a black mayor up here who just spent $27 million on dirt to make some white people happy. To make some white people happy.
For a park.
Yeah, for a park. Just to make them happy. And we need to hold him accountable.
But not for a park that the very people in Forest Cove couldn't even go visit. You know, if they
they get killed over there.
You get killed or arrested, or you know. So Joe Biden wants to send $800 billion to the Ukrainians during wartime. In peacetime, this fool wants to send $27 million to the very people. Okay, now here's some of the history, Bernard. They claim that the brick company used black labor, worked black people to death, and it's sacred ground because of what happened in the past. All right, damn, what's going on in the future? You know, because there's blood, and we don't want the deal. So basically, if this brick company owned that property and they treated black people like this, why pay them $27 million now? Does that make any rational sense? Somewhere there's ownership that they play a role in it because it's their land, right? But you're gonna reward them for those atrocities with $27 million? You know, please make it make sense. I have an article. Well, there's another comment. I read Millennial said it was the renovation costs were $100K per apartment. Why not give residents a $100K voucher? Beautiful idea.
That's too much of the right thing. They would never do it because it's the right thing to do. It's so easy to do.
Well, you know, again, history shows what happens when we get something or they give us something. We make it work. That 40 acres in the mule, we would have work.
We would have blew it up and we would have been running the country.
We would have been running the country. And you see, that's the threat. So why teach black boys to read when they're going to wind up running the country? Why give black people after Reconstruction land and a mule to really build their wealth because they wind up running the country? Again, the reading statistics show you the white children were given 500 years head start. Black children are negative in the years. Okay. But look at the competition level. Look at how we're thriving. So, you know, when people like an Andre Dickens stop being scared of themselves and the true power that they possess, but, you know, those people, they're never going to wake up and nod. Let me get into reality.
They on the payroll, and we as the public, as the community, we got to hold them folks accountable, and we have to go down there and make sure they don't get voted back in. And we got to start hand picking our people. We got to start grooming our own people to get up in there. People we know gonna do the right thing. We got to start doing that. We got to start from the ground.
And I say, until that time, let's vote every day. And what I mean by that is, let's not wait until the polls show up. Get on that phone, email, social media, blast, whatever. You know, we shouldn't wait and pay dues or let these people get away with all of this. And then when it's time for election, they put the money behind the candidates that they want. And then we're back in the same situation. Mm-hmm. Let's vote. I believe voting every day, because just because the candidate that you chose didn't win, they still work for us. Let's see. I feel you, President Arnold culture and consistency is important, especially for young children.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I guess we'll, about to bring it to a close. I would like to announce that once again, the board meeting, May the 9th, Atlanta Public Schools. You sign up between 5 and 5:50. Now they got this whole new situation where it seems like it takes more time to fill out the paperwork on this little pad, when in the past you could write your information down and be in the lineup. So they do all these type of things to destroy the voice of the people. But
they don't want us speaking. They don't want us speaking.
Oh no, they don't. They do not want to hear from us. But right now, public opinion is no. There's no a no go for the closure of Thomasville Elementary. Okay. Again, I relayed this to the superintendent. Low student teacher ratio. They talk about equity from here to hell with no results to show for it.
Nothing.
That's an equitable moment that Atlanta Public Schools can utilize. Would you like to have any final comments, Bernard?
In closing, let's be prepared to go the long haul on this, people. I'm glad that everybody viewing in and they replying and asking questions. It's a lot of information out here, and the truth is, like, we got to get this information, and we need to be feeding our children this information. Like, I don't sugarcoat stuff for my son. I tell him the truth, because I believe that if my mom had told me the real hard facts when I was a child, where would I be at now?
Yeah.
So we got to start with our kids so they understand that this is a social battle every day. Being a Black child, it's a battle. It's a battle every day. But we got to stick together, and we just got to keep doing it together.
Yeah.
We all roots of the same tree. I appreciate everybody who out there listening. Thank you, Nate, for the opportunity.
Hey, well, thank you for coming on and being a warrior in this fight, and and leading by example. And that's what's needed. That's what it takes. Regardless what your walk of life is, we got to get to the point where we embrace our history. We embrace who we are and the brilliance that we possess. So if we embrace that, then we can see it in our children and understand why we must fight so hard for them. History has proven that we're a threat. You can make believe all day long that if we don't talk about race issues, it'll just go away. Now, you embolden the racists. You embolden them. And where we're headed right now, it's going to be worse than ever, because they're taking the filter off.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking the
Trump,
filter off.
Trump opened the door.
Trump, others. You got this guy here in governor endorsed by Trump, even though Trump going through all this trouble.
And
this lady.
And what did he say? What did he tell everybody? He said, "Oh, now you can carry your guns concealed. You don't even need a permit." And who was that against? Us.
Yeah, it's against
us in the street. They're gonna shoot us. Come on now.
Now you see, and then let's go back into history once again, Bernard. When Black people start organizing, and we just say the Black Panthers, then it went guns again. Yeah.
That's right.
You can't only take it. So again, respect the power that's within you. Respect your role in this. We may not have the type of peace we desire, because there's so much at stake that we have to fight for. Especially if we want to have a future generation to benefit from just our presence here. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important. Will the future generation or generations benefit from our existence now?
Right.
And I'd be damned if I'm going to have a non-existent existence for the future.
True.
Yeah. We got to make put our stake in the ground, stand up for our children, and put this BS aside. Why? I know we were going to wind up We support so many of these companies that's not in the Gucci. People wearing Gucci,
Louis Vuitton,
all these, but what are they doing in your community?
not a damn thing.
And then you don't have the backbone and balls to say, can you contribute? Because you want to appear to be like you got it all when you don't have nothing. You know, just because you wear designer outfits and you think you have maybe 6, 7, 8 figures, you still have no power. You know, power, you don't have to have a damn dime to have power, to be respected. But to be a walking damn billboard, you know, being a cheerleader for oppression makes you one of the weakest beings, period. Because see, they know your history better than you do. Better than you do.
That's why they don't wear it. They don't wear it.
Yeah, they don't wear. All the time they wear it is unless they're trying to imitate us, and by being a buffoon in blackface. That's when they try to wear it. But they know better than to put their money into that kind of stuff. But again, after Reconstruction, all we wanted was land, to be educated and be left alone so we can enjoy our rights, not to be wearing all these designer things. So next week, we definitely gonna talk about. I think we talk about Black Power all the time, but we're gonna definitely dive into it. We're gonna definitely dive into Black Power because I have this concept of Black to the second power, Black Square. But thank you all for tuning in. This has been Exposed. I'd like to also thank. I'm just gonna check the comments once again, make sure we covered everybody. Okay, the Black Power, definitely on tap, where we're going to bring more history and information, as well as the issues that we're facing here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, if you have some issues in your city, D.C., or wherever, it could be in Africa, chime in on this conversation, because this is a global movement. This is our 5th show. We plan to keep it going, and your voices and input is needed, okay? I'm Nate Dyer. I'd like to send a shout out to Square Mile Media, which is producing this show, and that's Miss Adrian Coleman, who always does an excellent job, and I'm very happy and pleased to be working with her. So we shall see you next week. I'd like to thank again President Bernard Arnold for being on board and keeping up the fight and being a guest. So thank you, my brother. And to the viewer audience, love you.
Mr. Dyer, you have 2 minutes.
The children exclaimed, "What about love?" I'm saying, what about equity? If you allow Thomasville to close, throw your strategic, plant facilities plan in the garbage. Because this precedent that you're setting with Thomasville, when you allow a purpose-built contractor to make a decision on a tax-paid building, then you have no credibility. That is the greatest inequity of all, and you're supposed to have a department that's supposed to look at that. You know, there's stability. Stability for children is very important. If a child leaves an elementary school and go to middle school, they feel some kind of way about the old school. So imagine children who are attending the school and they haven't completed their cycle, and now you're shutting the door on them, especially after their building has been condemned. And the children have been living those conditions for a long period of time. So if you have any type of heart, you give those children some time to heal. And what about the solution of working with that low student teacher population? If Purpose Built is the group that's supposed to run it, why are they throwing in the towel if they have an effective system to bring those young people up to par? But I guess they don't. You work with the low student teacher ratio, then that's a recruitment tool when they plan to rebuild a place where you get more students to come in. That impacts Carver, that impacts Slater, that impacts all those schools. But you see, development is the name of the game. They use black boys and girls as scapegoats for failure to usher in development. Time and time again. Now, you know you're new here, but it's amazing how they bring superintendents here to ruin their careers. I'm against any type of school closure, especially coming out of a pandemic. The numbers that your group, that Sizemore group right in here, totally inaccurate. All of the white schools are full capacity. All of the black schools, low capacity. But yet, that's where the development is happening. If you're looking at statistics in ARC, they're talking about growth. So I would say reevaluate, get involved, because your blood is on your hands if Thomasville closed, and you're going to hear from the community. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this concludes public comment.